welcome back to Property Matters on Dublin South FM with myself, Carol Tallon. You can contact us on Twitter at iPropertyRadio or email hello@iPropertyRadio.com. Now, I'm joined by Anne-Louise Hannon, a well-known face to many, I'm sure, former commercial property consultant and now personal styling and image consultant with StylElevate. Anne-Louise, that's a very long description.
It is, Carol.
You're very welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
I'm delighted you were able to join us. As I mentioned, you're a very well-known name across commercial property and indeed agency work in Dublin. But You've had something of a pivot. This has been an interesting year for many, but you've certainly turned it into a very interesting year. So, well, look, first of all, we might just position this by saying that, of course, you used to work with CBRE in the office side of things, and you had been well known there. This seems like a fascinating time for the office and the future of the office. Where do you stand on that debate?
Yeah, no, thanks, Carol. So the last 7 years I was working in CBRE. So definitely, I think COVID has given us all a time to kind of sit back and consider our next step. So that certainly happened in my case. And what was born out of it was a new business, so StylElevate. But most certainly in the offices, I mean, I definitely would miss the office environment myself, but there's still real value to be had in the office. I mean, in terms of collaboration and creativity, I think it's definitely been lost over the last little while. And obviously, we can still continue on thanks to technology, but you certainly do miss it. And look, I don't think our homes were never meant to be our offices in most cases, but undoubtedly, I think flexible working will change going forward, and I certainly see there being a hybrid approach. But just from, you know, my colleagues, my ex-colleagues in the industry and indeed friends have said there's definitely been a pickup in momentum over the last number of weeks anyway, which is a good sign.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the point about coming together for collaboration and creativity, that's something we've really just realised ourselves within Property District over the last number of months. That, you know, I was saying, or even really we've realised in the last couple of weeks, productivity is way up, creativity has not increased at the same level at all. And, you know, again, we're human and we need that human interaction. You know, so I think the office will become the place of that. Maybe not for deep work, but certainly for any collaborative work like that.
I definitely think so, yeah.
Anne-Louise, I mentioned at the start here that, you know, it's been a really interesting year for everybody, irrespective of the sector that you're in. But you've really taken some bold decisions this year. Talk to us about StylElevate.
I have, yeah, Carol. I mean, it's something I always kind of wanted to explore my creative potential. And I think that's something, as I just kind of said at the start, that it was sitting with me for a while and kind of, you know, having the courage to kind of do something a little bit different. I've certainly pivoted from property, although, you know, I'd still like to kind of seek out opportunities within the property industry still. But most certainly I wanted to follow through on a dream of mine, which was to own my own business. So I'm delighted with how things have gone. It's set up since November. So it started out as an online business. And thankfully, all of my services can be held online through Zoom. So it's done quite well now, I have to say, and it's great to still have the connections within the property industry as well. So it is it's a business focused towards women. So the whole idea of to elevate is really kind of to elevate and empower women to really kind of dress for themselves. And I think from working in the property industry over the last 10 years, I sort of noticed kind of throughout the years, a little bit of a disconnect with some women and kind of their personality matched with the clothes that they chose to wear. I think, you know, we were just even having a conversation about us both wearing red. I certainly think that, you know, colour psychology has proven that it can really empower us, and it can be quite powerful in certain situations and certain environments. So I certainly challenge my clients to test out, and we try out new colours on them. But it's something that I've been passionate about for years. And I really think it's lovely to see when you see someone's personality and character come through. As you know, property is still quite a male-dominated industry, and that has changed throughout my career over the last 10 years. But it is great to see younger women coming through, and I think personal branding is something that we can all still work at. It comes more natural to others, but I certainly think through clothes, we can definitely make a stronger impact with our personal branding.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you. And I'm definitely somebody who doesn't know much about fashion, but also doesn't think a lot about fashion. So, you know, from the time I left college, you know, my background was in law, and I wore a dark trouser suit. I channel my inner Hillary Clinton, but dark trouser suit, white shirts every day, same day, or same thing for years. And when I started out my own business, which is 15, 16 years ago, I swore I wouldn't do that. And I tried to make an effort for maybe a couple of weeks or months, got bored, and then ended back in the very same suit, same thing. I know. And it was actually, you and I were talking about color psychology, and I always wear black, white, or gray in work, or blue if I'm on stage. And because I knew I was talking to you today, I picked the only thing that wasn't black or white or gray in my wardrobe. And we log on and we're wearing almost the same thing.
Yeah.
Which I think goes to show my lack of imagination, that was all I could do. But one of the things that you said to me that really struck with me, I'm fascinated by the concept of personal branding now.
Yeah.
But only because I found myself in a position where I was writing books and doing TV work and radio, and I had no concept of what a personal brand was.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I really realized was that if you don't, just because you don't shape or make any effort to pull together a cohesive personal brand, doesn't mean you don't have one, because actually everybody has a brand. It's what you're presenting to the world. But the problem is, if you're not crafting it, then it is open to interpretation by anybody. And I think that's something that, you know, I'm 20 plus years into my career, but for people just coming out of university and going into the workplace now, I think the need for personal branding certainly appears to be much higher than it might have been 20 years ago. Is that a fair assessment?
I definitely think so, Carol. And I think it comes more natural to others. I mean, I think I was always acutely aware of it throughout my time in property. And I don't know, it was something that my dad had said to me years ago, saying that your personal brand is really your trademark. And when you leave a room, what do you want people to say about you? And I think that's stuck with me throughout. And I think that's why I think there is a great importance, and to place it, you know, there is an importance of it, even amongst organizations, you know, to take the young graduates through that. And, you know, it does come down to the individual, absolutely. And, you know, like I said, it is probably comes with age and a bit of confidence building as well. But I certainly think, I mean, there is kind of, psychologists call it thin slicing, where unfortunately, you know, through the first 7 seconds of meeting someone, they will, I suppose, have, you know, an idea of who you are as a person, which seems very unfair, but unfortunately we don't like to talk about it. But appearance does play a big, huge part in that. And, you know, that's what I'm trying to do with clients. You know, you mentioned there, Carol, that, you know, you're busy and you don't really think about what you're wearing, but it is really to bring more awareness to that. And even in certain settings, like we are today, wearing kind of a bold color, but knowing your audience. I mean, you're certainly not, you know, going to wear more of a relaxed look, you know, going into maybe meet solicitors, for instance. So depending on the organization, I think we can all kind of maybe focus a little bit more on our presentation. And even I do work with corporates at the moment, and we do sessions called grooming for Zooming. So it's a little bit catchy, but it's more the focus and the emphasis is on kind of your top half of your body. So again, that's playing on the color psychology, but just little style cues that people can take on board. I mean, the whole idea of kind of, you know, fashion and styling, it's certainly not that you have to be on top of the latest fashion trends. It really isn't. What I try to do, and working one-to-one with clients, I can achieve this, and thankfully the feedback has been great, is really to draw in on their likes. What do they like to wear, and how do they like to feel when they wear certain clothes? And so I think that's something that's key, and really plays on authenticity as well, which again feeds back to your personal brand.
Yeah, I love when you're talking about personal branding that you bring authenticity into it, because I think
Absolutely.
maybe some of the early work around personal brand mightn't have highlighted that so much. And the reality is you still have to be yourself. You have to be true to yourself. That authenticity, it's become a bit of a cliche to say it, but actually you have to be yourself. It's too exhausting trying to be something or someone else. So I think that's a really key integral part of it. But this grooming for Zooming, I love that. Is that for men? Is that for men and women?
Yeah, so a lot of the corporates that I'm working with, obviously I cater to a diverse audience. So I will tailor any of my corporate events that I am doing. They usually take an hour long, kind of a lunch and learn type setting, but they are tailored and can be obviously to a male audience. And what I will say is I while my business is focused and kind of centered more towards women, I have been approached as well to style men. So just if there's any men watching that think
that
it is just yeah, well yeah.
Is it more difficult? Because what I'm seeing is that I think women have evolved out of maybe, I might have been a decade behind the trend, but women have evolved out of suits in the workplace over the past more than 10 years. Like I said, I'm very behind the curve on that. But I think it's much more difficult. Is it fair to say, is it more difficult for men to get that balance of smart casual, understanding the workplace? Of course, I presume it depends on the workplace and the type of workplace that you're in, whether it's a tech company or a legal firm. But is it more difficult for men to get that balance of smart casual right?
It can be. And I mean, I've friends of mine that are males in the industry, and, it is that kind of like, do I wear runners? Do I, are jeans appropriate? And the summertime is always a funny time as well, because naturally there's warmer weather and, what is kind of appropriate. So yeah, you'd be right to say, I think for women, we probably find it a little bit easier with the smart casual look. So with men, actually with sizing with men are quite good in that their clothes that they probably buy online, they know what they like, they know what they don't like. So whereas sometimes with women, particularly with some designer clothes, and the sizing can be a little bit off. So I think what we're finding at the moment and working with clients is it's a bit of trial and error, and that can be frustrating. Whereas normally if we were in the shops, kind of you'd be able to feel a garment or know more about the fabric. So actually, for men at the moment, I think it's a lot easier to style. But again, it totally comes back to the organization, like you touched on, Carol. And that's what, if people are going for interviews, I would normally ask them a little bit about who, what type of organization and what the ask is from the organization. And I think, again, that comes down back to kind of your personal branding, is not to kind of deviate too far away from that. Obviously, stay true to yourself, but also if we're in kind of a legal setting, obviously maybe more tailored suits might have to be worn. So yeah, I definitely would kind of caveat that it's, well, actually probably going forward now, just the way we are working, and probably more hybrid approach as we discussed, there might be more of a relaxed kind of office, attire really.
Yeah, there's a definite sense of things changing. But we're having this conversation on International Women's Day, yes, which is great. I love that. But it's, we're not just having this conversation because it's International Women's Day, but it's great the way it fell. You're coming from an early stage career where even without you and I ever needing to have a conversation about it, I know, because I know the women you've been surrounded by. You've absolutely been surrounded by some of the powerhouse women within this industry. So, I wonder, maybe it's different coming from the career that you've had, where you've seen women in leadership positions, strong, influential in the industry and, exceptionally good at their job and have risen to very senior your ranks and are very respected within the industry. Do you think that's representative of the planning, construction, and, well, maybe not so much construction, but certainly the real estate industries in Ireland?
Yeah, I do, Carol. And it's, again, something that I've been hugely passionate about. I've sat on kind of diversity boards and, the day that's in it, talking about gender equality, I think there can be more done. And I think definitely as industry leaders, we need more female representation, particularly at board level. But no, thankfully, I have had really strong powerhouse women, as you alluded to, kind of championing me really throughout my career in property. But what I will say is also I've had very strong male, I suppose, mentors the whole way up as well. And I think that's worth mentioning. It's definitely, it's a day for, to celebrate women. But also I think if we can work more cohesively, there won't be us versus them conversations happening. So I think that's really important. And it is really actually about opening up conversations and leaning in maybe towards, male figures or male bosses, throughout our careers. I think that's probably really important to say as well. But mostly, I've had nothing but good experiences throughout my 10 years.
I'm delighted. Obviously I'm delighted to hear that, but I'm particularly delighted to hear you talk about the importance of mentoring from both male and female, because I think, if we don't position it like that, then not only are we excluding men from the conversation, but we're kind of excusing them from the conversation as well. And that doesn't help the industry. So I think it's really important that we look at this holistically. It's not enough to look at the figures and say there are X number of men, X number of women. For me, I'm always interested in who's kind of at board level, who's making the decisions. I think that's where we're getting the test, and there's still a decade of growing into that needs to happen, and it might feel frustratingly slow, but for me it's important that from a board level point of view, and certainly from the decision making point of view, that things are changed, but in a way that almost brings us full circle back into the whole thing about personal brand and how you champion yourself throughout your career. Just, I suppose, before we finish up, is there a difference, do you see, with maybe young surveyors entering into the industry now, between males and females? Is there a difference between the ones who might actually prioritize personal branding, or perhaps seem to be particularly good at it? Maybe it comes more naturally to either men or women?
Yeah, I think it's something we all have to try better at. And, I suppose even going through your kind of KPIs nearly every month, I think we used to have them, and really kind of honing in on that and, putting it down as something that we all need to work on. But networking, unfortunately, we probably haven't been doing as much networking as we would have liked during this time, kind of during the past year, really. But networking, it's still something that, should be within everyone's kind of, even just getting out for coffees during the week. That was always kind of cemented, in me working in CBRE, was that, you need to get out and start meeting your peers. And I think that will really stand to you. And definitely just, having the confidence, I suppose, to speak out. And I think, given the day that we're in it, International Women's Day as well, just having a voice and being visible, I think that's, it definitely does come more natural to others. But I think pushing ourselves and just making sure that, I suppose, we're getting, a name for ourselves out there is really key, just even at graduate surveyor level. But I know there's more happening in the background, like you said, like with the SCSI, the mentorship program that's happening. So there's a lot of work being done behind the scenes, and I really hope to see that continue, because it's certainly an industry that, for both male and female, having both perspectives, particularly, in pitch-like settings, and winning business settings, is really crucial going forward on board level, like you just mentioned. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's wonderful that we're starting to see people in this holistic way, and trying to bring out the wholeness of people. I think that can only be a good thing. Thank you so much, No, that was great. Thank you so much for joining us. That was Anne-Louise Hannon, former commercial property consultant and now personal styling and image consultant with StylElevate. Anne-Louise, before we finish up, what's your website? The new website?
Yeah, my website is www.styleelevate.ie. And if anyone wants to reach out, they can just email me at info@styleelevate.ie.
Super. That's great. Thank you so much, Anne-Louise Hannon. Delighted. We'll be back after a quick break. Stay tuned.